Hello, and welcome to episode 83 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all the things Nintendo. My name is Kevin, and with me this week at the Nintendo Museum to talk about the heavy hitters Kirby, Mega Man, and Zelda is Harrison, a heavy hitter himself.
Okay. Thank you for your compliment. I appreciate that.
How's your week been, Harrison? What's going on in the world of Nintendo?
Same, same thing mostly. So I'll keep it short. Summer is my busy time. Life is hitting me hard, and I guess what I will say though is that I did start, of course, playing spotlight games, but also playing a game that I think both me and you are going to review next month. So I'm just gonna keep it there because we're gonna not talk about that game until we release it. So
Yeah.
that's it for me. It's been super busy. Even been doing some projects for this podcast or this or that. So hey, slow motion is better than no motion, as we say over here. And you just play games. I'm also doing the video game class too.
Oh, yeah.
Doing that. So so
Yeah,
so
that must be a good
so,
time.
so, so doing things like that as well, and that's a way to stay invested. Doing this podcast is a way to stay invested. I said I was going to keep it short, but yeah, it's been super busy time. How about you?
Well, the recent conversations we've had on this podcast have actually taken me back on my Mega Man obsession. I mentioned in the episode we did about games you've purchased the most times, where I think I've bought the classic Mega Man series every time they've released it. I've had it on everything, like everything that plays games. I've had those, except maybe like Virtual Boy. Like anything they released it on, I've bought the Mega Man classic series. And there was a time I was thinking about this week where I was very pigeonholed in what I was playing. I was literally only sticking to the like 5 or 6 franchises that I knew. Like I was playing every Final Fantasy, Mega Man, Zelda, Metal Gear, Mario, stuff like that. Just like there was probably less than 10 franchises, and I was just playing the games in them on a loop. And breaking out of that is the reason it's taken me until like the past like 5 years to play a lot of classic games that everybody talks about. Like I played Earthbound last year for the first time, the Super Nintendo Earthbound, Mother, or is it Mother 2? I know there was an NES one, is what I'm getting at. I played Chrono Trigger for the first time very recently. I started Dragon Quest, and I'm 3 games into that now. And the big one, Metroid, which I've mentioned on here, it's a series that I've played before, but until recently, I never got really deep into it. So at this point, I've played every Metroid game except Other M and like that Federation Force weird one. That's a long rant to take me to a question that I wanted to ask you is, are there any series like that for you that you like slept on and then it won you over way down the line? Because out of the ones I mentioned, like I said, Metroid's definitely won me over at this point.
Metroid's a good example, and I've never played Other M either. It's supposed to be. I mean, anecdotally, I've heard that it's great.
Yeah,
Anecdotally,
I
I've heard
think
it's
it was
great.
reviewed well at the time. It's just people did not like the story, but I think the gameplay is fine. But I don't know. I've seen very little of it, but what I've seen as far as gameplay goes looks pretty cool. The fact that it switches back and forth between like side scrolling and then you kind of go into these 3D areas, that looks cool to me. But I don't know. They might have dropped the ball on it.
Right. There's something specific. I digress. I can't for it. It's not about that. Yeah. I mean, Metroid would be a good example for me. Dragon Quest is kind of a good example. I mean, technically, Dragon Quest Builders 2 was a JRPG game. Um, in my opinion, and it is a top 10 Switch game for me. I think it's just a fantastic game. Um, and that has gotten me interested in Dragon Quest, but I haven't played any more yet. I could do Switch Online, but I think I'm 100% going to be getting these remakes coming out. So I'm still gonna say Dragon Quest. Um, yeah, Metroid, Dragon Quest. What else do you say? Man, like Earthbound and Chrono Trigger are great examples of games I really want to go back to and play at some point. Um, I wasn't a huge Zelda fan until Breath of the Wild, and it's debatable whether I'm actually a Zelda fan or I'm just a Breath of the Wild fan. I'm not really sure yet. But I've at least gone back and played most of the games at this point. Like not all, but at least most of them. Um, and before Breath of the Wild, I had played like original NES, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. I think that's it. So yeah, like I think I think we overlap on a lot of these. Yeah, like maybe if I had more time, I'd play Final Fantasy. Maybe if I just committed more time to JRPGs in general, that would be a good idea. Or if I just had one like in my back pocket all the time. But I don't know. I play a lot of Pokemon also.
Yeah, but you were following Pokemon like the whole time, right?
No,
Oh no?
no,
Oh,
no,
I thought you were
no,
okay.
no, no. I, I mean, I'm probably pretty similar to you. It's just that I became when the Switch came out, I became more invested in it, and then I just think I'm more invested in like certain Pokemon communities. I don't feel like honestly, I don't feel like I know anything about Pokemon when I play, or like when I play with other people, I should say, because like they start talking about EVs and IVs and badges and stuff. I'm like, what? Like it's just a very massive game at this point.
Yeah, there's just it's like Star Wars or one of those giant franchises where it's like nobody knows everything. There's just so much to know, you know. You could know
Um,
everything about the games and have blind spots when it comes to like lore that's introduced in like the card game and stuff like that.
I I have Star Wars friends, well acquaintances, I should say, that know like they know like I don't know like the the dimensions of like the wheels on do they have wheels on like whatever like they know way too much about Star Wars is what I'm
They
trying to say.
definitely have I've heard this conversation too about like I think when the original movies came out, they were operating just like War of the Worlds might be where this could have also gotten conflated from because I know War of the Worlds, the classic H.G. Wells story turned into movies, is they design the aliens as though it's an alien race that had never discovered the wheel. That was supposed to be like why the ships were designed that way in the original movie. And I think that might be a trivia fact that got conflated with Star Wars somehow. Because I know, like back during the original trilogy, people argued like, do they have wheels in Star Wars, which is what you were talking about. But by the time they got to making the prequels, there's definitely wheels all over the prequels. So uh, that got thrown out the window if it ever was a rule.
I'm probably referencing something. I'm probably referencing like Big Bang Theory where
Yeah,
they
because it
probably are
definitely was a
referencing.
thing that was talked about. Like, are there wheel? People have said like, are there wheels in Star Wars? And I'm like, of course there are. I can think of several robots that you can see the wheels off the top of my head. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think I'm referencing Big Bang Theory, and they're probably referencing exactly what you're talking about because because they throw in a lot of like things like on like the whiteboards that you might not notice or like that would make a lot of sense that they would bring up like Star Wars and Wheels or something. And anyway, yeah. I wonder like how often George Lucas meets someone who knows more about Star Wars trivia than he does. Like
Probably
I'm
way
sure it
more
happens
than he
all the time.
wants to. More often than he likes.
Because I'm sure there's people that have seen Star Wars way more than George Lucas has, even though like he worked on those films. Like there's people that have seen that those movies like hundreds of times. Just it's ridiculous. So speaking of things we like, um, yeah, have we ever talked about Xenoblade or Fire Emblem on here? Um,
No,
because
Xenoblade is on my list. I can tell you, I've never played a Fire Emblem game. Oh no, I'm talking about Xenogears. Sorry, the original thing from PlayStation. Um, no, I think one time I mentioned that I was considering getting into Xenoblade because it looks cool, but I never have. I still haven't.
I hear really mixed things, but I was thinking about between like me, you, Sean, yeah, like the three of us, like where are our Nintendo blind spots? 'Cause I
Mhm.
think we do like a pretty good job. Like we try our best. We're only Nintendo fans here. Um,
I think
but
it's
I was
completely
thinking like,
plausible that within the next 5 years, I will play the three Xenoblade games because it's something that's like always been on my to-do list. I just have not gotten to yet. And one thing that's slowing me down is the titles. I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but I think they've only put the second and third game on the Switch, and the first one you still have to play on the Wii U. So that's something that's been slowing me down.
well, okay, listen, listeners, you heard it here. If you're a Xenoblade fan, in the next 5 years, we're going to talk about it, unless we get a guest on here that likes Xenoblade. So either in the next 5 years or until we get a guest.
Yeah, next time I'm
Um,
craving a big open world RPG, and I've pretty much played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Not that they're RPGs, but a big open world experience, I should say. I think I'm going to turn to those. It's just going to have to be when I'm in the mood for that.
yeah, I think overall, I mean, at least between the three of us, we all play different kinds of games. So we at least bring that. But between the three of us, there are still series that, well, like I guess, like I mean, if we could go backwards and say like Golden Sun, which we will eventually talk about on here whenever we get
Ooh.
to it.
I think I told you that's another
Um,
game I have like a history with, Golden Sun.
yeah, and we'll eventually get to it. But overall, I mean, we talk about a fair amount of Nintendo IPs on here, so yeah, we try to be well rounded.
I was
All right.
riding with Golden Sun day one until I lost my copy of that game. I was like very deep in, and then I never wound up being able to finish it. And now that it's on Switch Online, I'm like, thank God it's there because after I'm through with these games I'm playing right now, I'm gonna finally finish that game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I put it whatever segment we did as like one of the least consequential like Nintendo franchises,
Uh huh.
um, but still had two of the greatest games on the Game Boy Advance and influenced. I found out it influenced tons of developers that make great games now. So it was a lot of people's favorite game growing up. Clearly, it's crazy that they released two supposedly, I guess, incredible like Metacritic, uh, Metacritic recommended games in 2 years, and then they didn't release another one for another 10 years, and then that was it. I think there's only three games, and it was like whatever it was, like 2001, two, or 2002, three, and then like 10 years later. So it's a very weird history. We'll have to get to it later. All right, I see you typing on here. Let's move on. Okay, there's not much news this week. And listeners, you can leave us yours down below. But here's our segment this week. All right. Starting today, if you could only have 3 games that you could play for the next year. Nintendo, not Nintendo, cross-platform, whatever you want it to be. Only 3 games for the next year. Doesn't have to be your favorite. It has to be something that you can play a lot. What would they be, and what would the total cost of those games be about? Okay, I'll go first. I'm saying either Breath of the Wild, of course, or Tears of the Kingdom. I might say Tears of the Kingdom because I could play that for a solid year, I think, and I really need to play that game. Number 2, Stardew Valley. Of course, I can always play Stardew Valley. I can always put hundreds of hours into it. There's just lots of different playthroughs I could do. Okay, that's that. Oh, sorry. Tears of the Kingdom, $70. Stardew Valley, about $20. And number 3, I have to say Minecraft because Minecraft is always a game I can play with other people. It's also cross-platform. It's almost like 2 games in 1, doing like survival and creative. Yeah, lots of play styles, just tons. And that would be $30. So in total, I'm gonna say $120 for my 3 games that I could play for a whole year. And my honorable mention would be pretty much any Animal Crossing game. Because I could easily play like almost any Animal Crossing game every day for a year. Or every
Yeah.
other day for a year. Okay, so there's mine. All right, Kevin, how about you?
Well, those are great answers. Before we get into mine, I'll say because like Breath of the Wild, I've been playing literally nonstop for the entire time the Switch has been out. So 7 years now, and just constantly started like 100%ing it and then starting a new file, 100%ing it again. The only thing like every time, I shouldn't say 100% because it's like every time I find something I didn't do last time that I'll do this time. Like pretty much the only thing I have left to do is I've never done a file where I fill that compendium with all the pictures and stuff. And like I've considered doing a playthrough where I do that. So
I've done it
um
one time.
yeah. You did?
I 100. In my opinion, like what I call 100%. I did it once as like kind of like an homage, and then I never did it again
And
because
then
like doing
go
all
ahead.
the quests and everything. Um, I never wanted to like do like all the quests again. I'll do all the shrine quests and all the shrines, but that's more of what I'm interested in is doing all the shrines.
And like you said, Tears of the Kingdom, not like those games, like there's just so much to do in them. So that could you could literally just limit it to that. But at
Okay,
this point, I've played so much of them that it's just not on my list. Stardew Valley, another great answer of yours is like that game has endless content. So I could do that one as well, but I wanted to differentiate my list, so I stayed a little different. I agreed with you on Animal Crossing though, especially New Horizons. And the reason I put it on my list, even though it's a repeat game to talk about here, is it I just started it this year, so I'm still fresh with it. I mean, I literally just started customizing like pathways in my town, like little dirt roads, because all I've been doing up to this point is like collecting things and trying to catch all the fish and the bugs. And I'm a collector. That's how I play Animal Crossing. Everyone plays it a different way. So I've just been collecting things up to this point, and I'm just now experimenting with like the whole customization factor. So I could easily play New Horizons for just a whole year, just that game. Um, the next one that I think I could play if I had to limit it to 3 games for a year, another game I've gotten back into recently is New Super Mario Brothers Wii U Deluxe, the biggest mouthful of Mario Brothers games. And I know this is probably making me sound like a contrarian or someone who has to be different, but yes, I played Wonder. Yes, I liked Wonder. I just have a special attachment to to that one specifically because when I got my Wii U, it was at such a specific time in my life where I was getting really back into video games again. And I don't know, I remember that being a big deal because they were like, it's the first HD Mario game. And it was like it was a big deal at the time. For some reason, people want to throw that game under the bus these days and act like they never liked New Super Mario Brothers series at all. And I don't know. I would just love a side-scrolling Mario in there to mix up the type of game I'm playing. And then the third game I could play on this list, if I had to limit it to 3 games for a year, is Pikmin 4. Another game where there's tons of content. I love the Pikmin series. I played the first one when it first came out. We've talked about this a million times. I skipped the second one, got back into the series with the third one, and then played the fourth one. And now I've played, because they're all on Switch, I've played all 4. I love it. Pikmin 4. It's a toss up for me between 3 and 4. I honestly think I might like 3 better, but there's not as much content. So for this particular exercise, I picked 4.
Right. Right. It's not about your favorite game necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
I did pick 3 of my like top 10 games, but I digress. It does like there are top 10 games I wouldn't pick for this exercise because they're very short.
Yeah, it's funny too because I was thinking about New Super Mario Brothers Wii U Deluxe. It's a mouthful today. Um, just randomly, even though well, I guess it's not randomly because I've been playing it, but I was just thinking about like how it's taking me back to because I got the one on the Switch. Obviously, that's the deluxe, and it's just taking me back to how much I loved the Wii U when it came out, and I'm just kind of bummed that things happened the way they did. I mean, I'm glad we got the Nintendo Switch out of it, but there was something there was something nice about that time. And I don't know if it was just for the people who were already drinking the Kool-Aid or if it really was cuz I mean, people have mentioned like, a lot of the Wii U's best titles made it onto the Switch. So the system couldn't have been all bad. Um and yeah, I don't know. I like I don't even know why I like the new Super Mario Brothers games over Wonder. It's just I feel like Wonder was a little too different. Um there's even subtle things like there's less coins just floating in the air in Wonder. They're mostly like they scatter when you hit something. It's like they took a different approach to coin collecting. And there's something about the new series that feels it's ironic. The new series feels more classic. It feels more like classic Mario. Um and I love I like the world map better for sure. The where you choose the level you're going to play. It's much more reminiscent of like Super Mario World than I the world selection in Wonder seemed like it was modeled after how you do it in 3D World, and I don't like that whole like wander around a map freely thing because it's like there's certain points that you just get to anyway, and the rest of it's just wasted space. I know they tried to mix it up by like hiding some levels and stuff, but it didn't really work for me. I just prefer that path and like put a red dot if the level has multiple exits and keep me on my path.
Yeah, I enjoyed Wonder. I
Oh, I
just don't know
enjoyed it too.
where.
I just like
Yeah,
knew more.
yeah. I definitely enjoyed it. Um, Anytime Nintendo tries something, I'm always going to appreciate it. I have no idea where Nintendo should take 2D Mario franchise because I just don't think it's just kind of like it's just kind of bland sometimes to me. I don't know, like because we live in a 3D gaming world now. Like games like Odyssey are always going to be like just like multiple times more interesting to me
And I almost
than
picked Odyssey for my list.
yeah. Odyssey is massive. Um, I mean, if you want to pick a game with lots of Mario content, that would be a great pick as well. Um, what what old if you could pick one quote unquote old game, what would you pick? Because we didn't pick any old games.
Um, that's a tough one because, like I said on this podcast before, I feel like I could play Mario RPG in a loop for the rest of my life. I liked Earthbound when I played it last year. I'm gonna go outside the box here and say Final Fantasy V because Final Fantasy games have a lot of content. Final Fantasy V is a game that I like, but I haven't played a lot of. I think I've only played it like twice, maybe a third time. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Final Fantasy V.
Okay, I'll be lame and go Mario 2 or 3. So I'll stay right pressed up against the box. I guess if you're outside the box, I'm right next to it. I'm inside the box. Um, yeah, but it's like Mario 3. I've put over 1,000 hours into, and it's not a game I'm good at. Still, in my opinion, or a game like Mario 2, I could put hundreds of hours into. Um, you know, again, talking about like uh 2D Mario games, I guess. But yeah, okay, okay, we chose recent ones. What what news items do you want to talk about this week? I had one oh I had like one big one and like two very small ones, I guess.
It wasn't a big news week for me. We can start with the Pokemon trading card mobile game because I made a post about that. So it is something I'm interested in. I watched that trailer, and it's got a release date of October 31st, and um, I don't know. There's something about it. I'm definitely going to try it at first, and I'm going to try to avoid spending all my money in that app because that's the exact type of thing I fall for. Is having like a nice digital collection organized. I used to spend so many hours organizing my iPod by like going into iTunes and like making sure all the metadata matched up perfectly so that the stuff would file correctly in my iPod. And I had a perfectly organized iPod. I used to have an external hard drive with tons of TV shows that I got, torrents of. Or no, I mean I purchased them legally, but you know what I'm saying. I organized them perfectly. Like I made sure all of the episode titles were like in a specific file name and structure. I don't know. I'm just always about organizing digital things, so I will be all about organizing a digital Pokemon card collection. I can tell you.
I mean, this one looks by far the most ambitious of any card app they've released because they've done, I guess, technically two trading card game apps at this point, and they've both been like very bad, like almost non-existent. So I'm assuming they're not um, continuing with those because this one looks like they spent a lot of money and it looks like they're putting a lot more emphasis on the card opening, card collecting part, which I'm much
Yes.
more interested in. Uh, but yeah, like graphics look nice, animations look nice. You slide your finger to open the pack, which is cool. Um, so I'm hoping there's going to be free to play options because I won't spend any money. But I will be interested in playing it if it's not all pay to win. That might be hopeful thinking,
Yeah, I
honestly.
agree with the other thing you wrote here too, which is I also hope trading is possible because that would just encourage. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. It's just going to encourage more people to play the game because more people are going to be talking to their friends who are like kind of into Pokemon but haven't played a game in 10 years. You know, you have coworkers that might go in this with you if you're like, dude, I'll trade cards with you. We'll trade. So, yeah, I could totally see that helping the app and not hurting it in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it might be hopeful thinking also to think that there might be like a live marketplace and everything because in reality they're probably thinking we want all of everyone to be focusing on getting packs of cards from us and not, buy low, sell high, like, or wait, yeah, yeah, I got it, nailed
You
it.
got it.
Okay. Um, it so yeah. I mean, I'm I'm interested in it, but I'm a bit worried that I've seen this happen many times. And yeah, why do they always call it trading card games when there's not emphasis on trading the cards? I don't like that. I don't like that. There's too
It's a
many
good point.
games. There's too many games in the trading card game genre that have nothing about trading cards. Trading the cards, I should say. And that's it.
Yeah, that's all we have to say about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, what else did you want to talk about? That was like the big one for me.
Um, uh, Emio is getting a three-part demo. First part came out, I believe, on the 20th. Second part comes out on the day we are recording this, the 22nd, and third part will be released 27th, which goes through the prologue or prequel and first three chapters. So I guess it's a big game that they're giving us three demos. That's all I'm saying about that. Do you have anything?
Uh, yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm going to check out the free demos to tell you the truth. I tend to like, it's weird. I can read a book right before bed and be fine. I have a big comic book collection. I'm just trying to get out there. I am into reading, but text-based games, like it looks like very text heavy, and those games tend to put me to sleep for some reason. There's something about combining the video game with the reading that puts me to sleep that doesn't happen for a comic book or a book, or I don't know, even like Final Fantasy games, which are text heavy, I'm good with. So I really don't know. Something about this specific type of text game puts me to sleep.
For me, it's just the pacing of it. For any game that it has lots of text in it, and yeah, it's just the pacing. And like, if you have been playing like emulated or like ROM hacks of Pokemon games, try to go back and play a Generation 1 Pokemon game and see like how slow like all the text is. Like I can't do it anymore. Like
Yeah.
now that I can like play I can play a regular Pokemon game at two times speed. I cannot go back to just like how slow some of the text is. So I think that's my reason because depending on what I'm reading, if I'm reading for fun, I actually usually read pretty slow if I'm reading for fun, but not. It's still at my own pace. Yeah, yeah. And then the other one was, did you watch the Nintendo? There was a Nintendo Direct, quote unquote, of the preview of the Nintendo Museum in Johto. Did you see that?
I did not. It's been on my to-do list, but it's, this is a busy time of year. Uh, I'm even, I think something we should mention here on the show is I'm even more hyped about the fact that hasn't Nintendo said something about there will be another direct soon, like almost confirming a September direct. So that's exciting because it's like, what is there left to talk about for them? because I know I'm completely ignoring the story here, but that I'm hijacking this thread. The um, the thing that's interesting about that is I don't think they're going to reveal the Switch 2 in a direct. I think it's going to have like its own presentation, and maybe they'll call it a direct afterwards, but not. I think it's going to be like this with the museum, where they just surprise drop something and call it a direct, and it's not going to be something we're looking forward to, like, oh, the September direct. You know, does that make sense?
Sure. And I forgot to. I was going to paste it in our notes, but Nintendo on Twitter was hilarious because they, I think, on their Japan account, announced that they're going to do this like mini direct of the museum, and then like right below it, they post there will be no Switch successor news or any news about like new games. So don't. It was like don't ask us about it, pretty much. Uh, so yeah, I can't tell what are what are rumors right now. I mean, it would be a safe bet to say we have a September direct. I just don't know what that is. But you know, holiday season's coming up, and it could be 20 minutes. So who knows? But the presentation, Miyamoto did it, and so it was very cute. Like it's just all very cute. And something I noticed in the presentation is that most of the time they don't take out the background noise of the museum as Miyamoto is talking and like going around the different parts, which I don't know if that was intentional. It almost seems like less quality, but I liked it because it made me feel like I was actually in the museum and you could hear like all of like the bells, whistles, and the air conditioning or whatever. It gave you kind of that atmosphere. Just small observation. But yeah, it's I want to go. Like like Miyamoto showed off the different like mini games they have. Like they have like these like little batting cages. They have this like really cool game where it's like you can play with like 15 people and there's this huge projector and it kind of looks like a Mario Party game, but you can shoot the characters with the NES, either NES Zapper or Super Scope. And have have there ever been any Nintendo games, like modern games, that have used those controllers? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
It's a super cool idea. I'm like why not? Like why would Nintendo not figure out a way to like I mean, it would have to be different, right? It would have to be different technology, but like why would you not make a game that uses those things and then you would sell those controllers for $60, you know? It just anyways, super cool. They also
People
have
got
they
over
also have an
that gimmick, I think, I think Nintendo thinks people got over that with they had the Wii, and then the Wii U tried to incorporate that too, and it flopped. So they're trying to kind of steer away from that now.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna sell 5 million, but like, would a million nostalgic? I don't know. Yeah, eh, I might be wrong. But there's also another room they showed where like you play games on just giant controllers. So like for example, you can go up to like this giant like 6 foot wide Famicom controller and you can play like with your friends. Like one person can do the D pad and one person can like do the big A and B buttons. So eh, anyways, I thought it was nice. There's some things in the museum I never knew about, like Nintendo photocopiers, like Nintendo baby strollers, like just a lot of things they show off pre 1977 before they got into doing actual video games. So let's move on. So my question to you, could you work a 40-hour Nintendo job and still enjoy Nintendo products?
Uh, Probably depends on what that job is. You know what I mean? But I think so.
Yeah, 'cause I call this. I want to call it like the Graceland question because I was thinking about like last time I was in America, a friend and I stopped by Graceland in Memphis, and I was thinking about like, what if you had to do Elvis for 40 hours a week? I just thought of, like I would hate
Yeah.
that man.
I feel
After 2 weeks, yeah.
they're probably very like specific on what their the tour guides are talking about. You know what I mean? So I could totally I think I could still appreciate it because there's so much to Nintendo history and what's in the museum is so focused. You know what I mean? So it's like I probably if like the Nintendo Zapper, was in the tour and I had to talk about the history of the Nintendo Zapper every day, I probably wouldn't want to buy any of that merch, but there's just so much with Nintendo that it's like, yeah, I think I'd still be hyped for Nintendo, just sick of the things I was talking about.
I could just see myself having a bad group one day, and then my boss is making me mad, and then there's some drama over here that I don't want to hear about, and I just get home from work and I'm like, Nintendo games? No. like I can see myself doing that as well. Like like how would I feel about Nintendo on like the worst day of work for me? But no, I think I would still appreciate it because I've worked in like service industry. Like I worked for Nike for 3 years, and despite all of the the horrible things they do, like I still appreciate that company. I still think that's a very interesting company. So like I think that I would. It just depends on yeah, it just depends on the content and the job. You know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so so yeah, that's all I got for this week. So we can move on if there's nothing else.
Yeah, I think it's we can do some spotlight, or is there anything else to talk
Definitely.
about? Okay. So
Yeah, yeah, easy week.
this week we have wrapped up our coverage on the Kirby's Dream Land trilogy. We're talking about Kirby's Dream Land 2 for the Game Boy, released March of 95 in Japan, May of 95 in North America, pretty much 1995 all over the place. And it's hard to put yourself in this headspace, but bring yourself back to before there were 200 Kirby games, okay? Back when there were two and not 200. It's Kirby's Dream Land 2. Even though Kirby's Dream Land 2 was technically the sixth Kirby game. That's right. So it was even confusing back then, because I'll break it down for you. Kirby's Dream Land 1 was followed by Kirby's Adventure on the NES, then Kirby's Pinball Land on Game Boy, then Kirby's Dream Course on the Super Nintendo. So now he's been on four
Yep.
systems in only five games. Um, and then Kirby's Avalanche on the Super Nintendo before Kirby's Dream Land 2 brought him back to the Game Boy. That's the
Yep.
order they were released in. You also had Kirby's Block Ball that same year, which was a take on the classic arcade game Breakout, where you bounce the ball up. So that's a total of, by 1995, Kirby had released 7 games in 4 years. It was already the way we make fun of it today. I found that so interesting when doing my research this week. Um,
Y- y- Yeah, and I'll add because you stopped there. That um, it seems like the most Nintendo thing ever to be like, okay, Dreamland One was good on Game Boy. Kirby's Adventure was better, and it was on NES. So Kirby's Dream Land 2 is going to be on Game Boy for some reason. Like
I'm
it just,
glad you said that because
yeah.
I have a memory. I had the first Kirby game on Game Boy, and I honestly remember not following the series. And I've said I'm someone who dives deep in a series, and I'll ride or die with my series. I did not end up following it because that ended up being confusing for me at the time in a pre-internet age that they kept going back and forth on all these different systems. It was on Game Boy, then it was on Nintendo, then it was on Super Nintendo, then it was back to Game Boy, then it was back to Nintendo. Like it was just like, well, I remember that being very confusing on top of the fact that they seem to all be different types of games. Like, because you're releasing Dreamland and Adventure are pretty close, but then you're putting out Pinball, and then you're putting out Dream Course, which if you don't know is like a bumper pool type game. Like it says that it's golf, but it's not really golf. It's more like bumper pool. And yeah, they've just got all these different like it was crazy. Like I don't know if a series has ever blown up that quick. Like even Mega Man, which people criticized back to him for being, pumping out a lot of games. Even Mega Man was only releasing one classic game a year, and even then sometimes they took a year off and it was 2 years in between games. So 7 games in 4 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, we probably see it more now than we did back then. Kirby is similar to like Hello Kitty.
Yeah.
It's like Kirby is this little pink ball, and it's really easy to take that little pink ball and reskin him and put him into all different. Kirby's a boy, right?
I think so.
To um,
Might be
I keep saying
genderless.
him. Yeah, I keep saying him. They. Um, uh, it's really easy to put him into a pinball game, into a ball breaker game, into a game that has balls in them, I guess. So that's uh, I think that we see that now more than ever. But
I
yeah,
looked
for
it
some
up.
reason,
I looked it up, and at least according to Wikipedia, in universe information, gender, male in localizations, unknown in Japan. So there you go.
right? There's no other family, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Oh God. Okay, Kirby
I don't
fans,
know
get
if
at
we've ever
us.
seen anyone else in his species.
Right, right. Because it would provide some clarity. Okay,
No,
okay.
apparently there's a character called Kitty that's a female Kirby. Okay. Man, this we're just scratching the
We're
surface of this iceberg, man. There's a lot of
yeah,
Kirby out there.
y- yeah, and also like in this game, uh, I'm not okay. I'm moving on. In this game, they have Rainbow Islands, which occur in this Kirby game and don't occur in any like literally any other Kirby game. I I tried looking far and wide because I was thinking it's got to be in at least just like by coincidence in at least one other Kirby game. But no, this is the only one. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that adds to what I was saying. It seems like each Kirby game is its own thing. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of lore, just reoccurring characters.
yeah. So if you're not a Kirby fan, like it's really hard to keep up with all these things because you don't see the Rainbow Islands again. I'm thinking it had to be at least referenced or something in some game I've never played, but no, no. So why wasn't this game on Super Nintendo? I mean,
Yeah,
Kirby
because
Adventure,
the third one was, which is weird.
sure, um, Kirby's Adventure on NES had better reviews. People thought it was a better game overall. I think they had a game on SNES, so why not put Dreamland 2 on SNES or put it on both? Like
I think the
we're kind of reaching
thinking
that time.
I think, and they probably only thought about this for like a week. I don't think they put much thought into this, but my guess is they were like, okay, we've got Kirby's Dream Land is going to be the Game Boy series, just like Mario Land. Land was like their suffix for Game Boy because you also have Donkey Kong Land. So land games go to the Game Boy. Kirby's Dream Land, Donkey Kong Land, Mario, Super Mario Land. And then they were probably thinking the Adventure series will be the home console one. But then they immediately gave up on that. But I think if I had to guess, I'd say that was their thinking for at least half a second.
I guess so. Um, I think it would have been. I think it could have been better. Um, just kind of overall. So yeah, let's get more into gameplay. How did you like the gameplay of this game, or compared to like the other games, if you can think back that far?
I liked it. I think there's something about Kirby's music that's very unique to the series that I really like, and probably because I have the nostalgia from owning that first game, it always like takes me back there. Um, the copy, I liked the copy ability and that they limited it to 7 abilities. I feel like a lot of Kirby games go overboard and there's 20 different copy abilities in Kirby's Adventure. I looked that up. So I feel like keeping it down to 7 keeps it more focused. Um, and the fact that 4 of the 7 are basically like, it's almost like they were going for the major elements. You've got fire, ice, electricity, and rock. And then they add in parasol, spike. I can't remember them all. There's a big sword that you get if you collect all the rainbow things. That's one of them. Um, and I like the animal helpers. That's a nice idea to change up the formula. Never really fell in love with it, but it was a nice idea. You get a fish for the water levels. There's an owl that can fly and a hamster. The hamster, by the way, very like there was something about the late 90s, early 2000s that were people were like obsessed with hamsters. I remember Hamtaro. There was the Littlest Pet Shop toys. You had those like electronic hamster toys that would roll around. And I think something people have forgotten about. Do you remember the dancing hamster toys that were in every toy store? That fad.
Sure.
They were basically like the pre-Funko Pops. Like everyone would be a different theme. You'd have like a ninja hamster and he'd swing nunchucks, or you'd have one that was like a police officer hamster and he had some handcuffs that he was dangling, like firefighter hamster, like all these different hamsters. And then that all culminated in the Hamster Dance website. So the world was crazy for hamsters for about 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
Then we moved on.
definitely. Did you have pet stores in your shopping malls during that time?
We did, and then it closed, but there was a time where there was a pet store at the mall. I imagine
Yeah,
having
we
worked at a
definitely
mall
did.
myself, I can't even imagine what it takes to run a pet store behind the scenes in those cramped conditions. So I'm kind of glad that's not a thing anymore.
I would be happy if pet stores were just not a thing in general.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
kind. I mean, yeah,
exactly.
I bet in the '90s, like little critters like that were selling like hotcakes. I'll say. Um,
One last thing I have to say about the gameplay, though, is this is a game that has multiple endings. If you find all the rainbow drops, and it makes some cool use of the Super Game Boy. If you've played this on a Super Game Boy, which if you don't know was a thing that went into the Super Nintendo, so you could play Game Boy games, and Game Boy Color, maybe? I'm not sure. One thing I couldn't find, no, I don't think it does. No, they made a second Game Boy. That's right. They made the Super Game Boy 2, and that could play Game Boy Color. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I could not find if you play this on a Game Boy Color, if that puts in the color effects as well. Because every time I tried searching it, all I found was people using the Super Game Boy. And I'm like, no, I know the Super Game Boy gives it color. I want to know if the Game Boy Color gives it color. So I couldn't find that information.
I didn't see any gameplay of that on online, but yeah, Super Game Boy makes it look pretty nice, and I won't be too critical because I'll say that I do think this game on the Switch Online service does look pretty good. I'll say. So I know I'm usually the one that says, "Oh, like why can't we get this version, that version?" But I didn't think about that. I watched a video by Ant Dude, and I didn't think about how some games look different in the Super Game Boy, and how some look better actually.
It was mostly apparent in the end cut scene. Like they threw all the color in there, which always makes me wish I knew more about how games were coded. Because I've always wondered, like, how does it know when, like, you put a Pokemon Red into a Game Boy Color and it shades everything a little bit red? Like, how did? Because it's operating off of technology where the Game Boy Color did not exist when they made Pokemon Red. So how does it know to read the game that way?
Mhm.
But I don't know. I really, if anyone knows more about that, let us know. Did they just specifically pick a bunch of major selling Game Boy games to pre-code into like the Game Boy Colors, like how it reads the games? Is that what they did? And so that when it just like reads the game's code, it's like, oh, I know this is Pokemon Red. I'm going to code this red. Or I don't know. I want to know more
Yeah,
about that.
that's a great question. I don't know about the development of Game Boy and Game Boy Color, but it could be something that they had planned ahead because they knew they were releasing Game Boy Color, and they had the technology for it at that point. So yeah, that's a great question. I mean, our Nintendo Switch had Bluetooth inside of it for a long time, and we couldn't use it for a while.
True.
So
True.
yeah, they do things just a bit differently. And oh, I could do a whole episode on Nintendo technology that I don't really understand. Yeah, I could do a whole hour on it. Uh, I would put this game pretty highly, but like honestly, I think it's a bit forgettable for me. I like the animal companions or whatever we call it. It seems very similar to a lot of things, a lot of Nintendo games. It seems like Nintendo really likes the buddies, the companions, the helpers, and you know, the rainbow drops, being able to go back and 100% the game by completing the bosses, everything feels like an upgrade from the first game. So I would put it higher, but I must say I don't. There's not between the seven worlds. It doesn't. I wish there was more of a difference. I just wish there was more of a contrast because they don't stick in my mind like a platforming Mario game does, where you get totally different biomes and characters, and it just it didn't stick in my memory enough. Can you? Does that relate to you at all?
No, for sure. I mean, like I said at the top of this is the third now Dreamland game we've done. Um, and I can just move into how I'm going to rank it. It completes the Dreamland series for us. I'll let you know I ranked Kirby's Dream Land number 28 and Kirby's Dream Land 3 37. And I like this one um, best of the three, so I put it just above the original. I ranked it right above Kirby's Dream Land at 28, so it bumps the original down to 29, and it bumps Kirby's Dream Land 3 down to 38. So yeah, that's kind of how I'd rank them. I'd rank them 2, 1, 3. It's good, but like you said, it's not in my top 20. It's almost out of my top 30. that we've done so far. It's a good, competent game, knows what it is, does what it's trying to do. It just isn't memorable.
Mm-hmm. Right. I have the same order 2, 1, 3. Dreamland 3 is down at like 52 for me. It gets lost. Dreamland I now have at 20, and I'm gonna put Dreamland 2 at 19. And it might sound like okay, 19 is pretty high for a game that I said is pretty forgettable, but there's a pretty big drop off between like my top 10 and 12 to like the rest of the games. It is what it is. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's very similar to one. It's an upgrade with more content. So I'm gonna put it like just one above, I think.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And now we can figure out what we're going to be playing next time. This is another one we can do a twofer because we picked NES Double Dragon 2 The Revenge. That's such a funny title. Double Dragon 2 The Revenge. So yeah, Double Dragon, and we can do a twofer because the original Double Dragon's on there as well, and I don't think they are so different that we can't just talk about them both.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yes, sounds good.
All right, and next week we will have a guest, unless something changes. You know how the world goes, but we'll have somebody here to talk with us about Double Dragon 2, and Double Dragon Double your fun. And we'll see you then. In the meantime, keep in mind, we are Nintendo fans, not Nintendo experts, so we probably got stuff wrong. Be sure to email us and let us know at nintendotherapypod@gmail.com. You can find us on X at Nintendo Therapy. You can find us on Reddit, Nintendo Therapy. We're all over the place. So get in contact with us, talk Nintendo with us. We will always be talking back and letting you know what we think of what you thought. And we'll see you next week for more Thoughts on Thoughts.